So what does living facilitation mean anyway? We're really looking at different facets of change making, such as facilitation, holding transformative group experiences, facilitating conflict, coordinating meetings, etc., through a regenerative lens. And this is modeled from the natural world. Living systems are all around us, including us. Our very bodies are living systems. And this is a drastic shift from a mechanical worldview that's really based on assembly line mentality of efficiency, productivity, siloing, and even myopic worldviews. So a definition I like to give that comes from my book, Regenerative Design for Changemakers, about what really is a regenerative or living system. It is any system's capability to adapt, transform, and evolve itself over time with internal feedback and self-regulation. So let's break this down. What does it mean? Adaptation, to adapt itself over time, means that it can respond to changing circumstances all around. Transformation is the ability to go from one phase into another as needed for the overall health and well-being, both of that system, as well as the various living systems it's interacting with. And over time, when we zoom out, this is really evolution. This is how systems evolve themselves over time. And they do that through processes of internal feedback and self-regulation. So there's agency, sovereignty, and power nested within each of these systems. And I would add to that definition that systems that are regenerative actually renew their resources over time. So this is different than depleting resources. This is different than sustaining the current level of resources. It's actually renewing and building resources and beneficial reciprocal relationships with other systems in its ecosystem around it. And so we can apply this to social ecosystems. It's not just what we see in a forest or field ecosystem, for instance. So our home is a social ecosystem. Our place of work, our place of spiritual practice or worship, our place of community organizing or civic engagement. These are all forms of social ecosystems because we know as human beings, we are part of nature. And regenerative systems through a living facilitation or a living systems lens, when we facilitate groups in this way, there's a flexibility and an intelligence to adapt, right, to the fluctuating situations that are emerging from within the group, as well as what is the wider context of our work. And we do this adaptation with emergent properties because we are thinking flexibly about what are the shifting conditions. So this worldview is really an integral worldview for coming to facilitation from a living systems approach. And not only is the way that we show up as facilitators and our conduct recognizing all of these capacities, but it's also thinking about how do we design experiences for groups. And this can range from design of content and materials to our delivery, as well as thinking wholly about participant experience. And in a regenerative paradigm versus a mechanistic paradigm, we actually view everyone, each participant, facilitator, co-facilitator, host of a site or a meeting, etc., as a unique individual. And each individual has specific needs, gifts, contributions that they can make to the group that's gathering, as well as society as a whole. So this is a way of seeing each person as having their niche, right? Their unique role and responsibility within the whole. And that's very, very different from seeing each and every person through a cookie cutter model that we can just replicate and apply the same formula or the same curriculum or the same facilitator techniques to every single situation or participant, because we know that nature is inherently diverse, right? And so are we too as natural human beings. And so shifting from a replicate, and I might even say best practices model, we might learn, facilitators do X, Y, and Z, and that's forms of best practice, we actually want to be thinking uniquely and flexibly about each and every participant, situation, gathering, and designing how we facilitate from that mindset. And also, with that, we know that participants learn very differently and engage in groups. We have introverts to extroverts on an entire spectrum, different forms of listeners and learners, from auditory learners and engagers to visual learners to those who understand best through somatic or physical experience. Different forms of integration of material or processing can happen through speaking and dialogue, can happen through writing, can happen through just quiet contemplation, etc. So we really want to be thinking about the whole polyculture of approaches, of tools, of different forms of engagement that we can use with the participants that we lead, as well as how are we designing with colleagues and co-facilitators alike. And from all of this together, this is really what is meant by living facilitation through a living systems or a regenerative lens.